Okay, we're starting part 2, just continuing on where we were, just this way we can break it up. So thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So make simple read and set variable. You can also start the script straight away using the parameters. And normally, in most cases, you do here persistent, which means the script will run. It will not stop and finish with the code. And this way, it's ready, waiting for whatever you want to do with it. So here, I can assign a variable, put var and text. And then I can read it as well. Okay, it didn't. Let me have a look if that's because of the parameter. No. Let's have a look on the internet on the help file. I very seldom use this function to assign variables, mostly share everything through the object. But let's have a look what's the problem here. So string variable, string value. Here's actually the DLL code explained and still some old code, but also the new code.
So you're missing the AHK assign. You have just said assign.
Thank you. Correct. The new V2 version would complain, but the old one doesn't complain because it simply doesn't return anything, let's say. Yeah, and here we go. So it will be like this. Another advantage also from the Dynaco, it's you can use like this as well. It will pass the parameter to the function as a text. So it's really convenient because you don't need to specify all the stuff here.
Yeah. Yeah, the dot notation.
Notation, yeah. There are quite more functions with the DLL. Let's have a look if it's should be here. So these are the exported functions. Also, the AutoHotkeyH has the exported functions, so you can do the same, control the main exe using the DLL. To do this, we simply use AHK exported function. So if you do here,
yeah,
yeah.
I was going to say was because I remember when we were reviewing this before, I was confused on like that first one, but now that you're throwing 2 lines into line 1, basically, you're starting a script, making it persistent, and then now setting a variable within here.
Yeah.
It's making more sense to me.
Yeah, to make it look easier, we can also do it that way. So it's a continued section. And if you, for example, do here, let's try test and read it. To a message box. So you will read inside the DLL a variable from the main script.
Yeah, my brain's hurting. Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, you're demonstrating right there how it's multi-threading, right? I mean, that you're
correct. Yeah. So you can control from any thread. You can also give the object just by giving an address to a thread. You can share the thread between each other, so they can control each other as well. So they can communicate and control whatever you like. Okay?
Yeah.
So need to get a bit into it and read about all these functions and whatever you need. So it's also able to execute some new code in AHKH, which is not possible in the normal AutoHotkey. So, for example, when you start a thread, it can be done in the same way in the main exe. So the thread is there, but it can't do anything. It doesn't have any code. It's just persisting. It's sitting there. Yeah. We can go and execute some code and say message box. You know. So now we tell the DLL to execute some code, to run it, some new code. You can also add some code to your exe, or for example, you want to have a hotkey, or this is quite useful to have a new hot string, for example. So if we add script and tell, let's do a hotkey, so Alt-R, oops, Alt-R will display message box now. Here we can also do persistent and do escape. Right. So now we started, the script started, and when I now hit Alt-R, it will run the code. And I can do multiple stuff, so you can have a GUI and define new code which you just add to your existing DLL and use it. So you can just add script, for example, another, what was it, a hot string. Now when I run it, it will, okay, something wrong. It's probably because we need to install keyboard hook, I think. Yeah, so it requires a keyboard hook, and when it's not installed in the beginning, it's not able to do the hot string stuff. So you have to install it in the beginning to be able to do this.
And
Isn't that one of the functionality that normally happens when you actually put in the hot string in a normal way in a script? You don't need to install the keyboard hook.
It does it automatically, yeah. So if you would have it something here, AHK, AutoHotkey, it will be the same, so it will do it automatically for you.
Right.
And you then run it, AHK will work, and this will work as well. And because there is no code, so AutoHotkey doesn't know if you need it or not. It's not doing it by default to save some space, and it doesn't do it.
So forgive my ignorance on this, but I think this is cool. But I'm trying to think about like real world applications of how I would use this part, right? What is it again? Just that
adding just some new script to it, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we can, for example, edit 2000 new script. Let's put it so that way. Next button. Right. And button is that. So here we do a simple GUI which will allow us to add new code to the existing thread. So install. Right. So we do it up front. And this will hold the code, and we simply add the code. Now we can kind of have a GUI to add new hot strings, for example.
Yeah, okay. And that's literally adding them to the running script.
Exactly, yeah. So you can even do it automatically by analyzing your typing, whatever. You can check if it's in the right window. You can, for example, do automatic tests here and check if you're in the right window. If yes, unpause the thread, and if you are in the wrong window, pause the thread, or disable the hot strings and things like this. So like sensitive hotkeys, and you can have different stuff for different windows. I even wrote a script which is doing it automatically. So now it's here, and you want something new. AHK.
Yeah, it's funny because I get it now. Thank you for demonstrating that. But you're going to force me to rethink how I even design things, because that was never a possibility before, right? So yeah, it's going to take me a while to like apply this, because it's so not the way I've been trained to think.
Yeah, and you can also here always save it to an INI file or a text file, and whenever you start, you can also read this file and just apply it here. So here we'll simply do the file read. The host strings and my host strings text, and just simply apply it here. And now it would automatically load all your hot strings you defined before. And here you can also file append your hot string to your file. And this way it will always save it and load them automatically. And you can also do things like add another button saying you want to edit your script, you know, and it will simply open your file. You can modify it and reload. A lot of things, possibilities which you can do. Makes it very easy to use.
Very cool.
So there's a little bit about all these functions. There are some more stuff. You can add a file, for example, to load it from file, and some special stuff which is low level. And here to control the DLL is you can AHK terminate to stop the script if it's hanging, or you simply want to stop it, and check if a script is running. AHK ready, which will return 1 is script is running and 0 otherwise. Okay. If you continue to the object dump very quickly, object dump. So this is something I brought to exchange data also between some running scripts, or you save data locally. So when you want to do some configuration files and they are getting very big, it's not very useful to save INI files or text files, because it takes quite a lot of time and a lot of writing stuff on your disk. And because all the zip functions were already existent, I've put it all inside the main code. It also runs a lot faster because there's a version on AHK AutoHotkey, which you can use also with L. Sorry, getting late here. Dump. So here is the AHK function, which doesn't do decompression, but it does the same job. Of course, it runs a lot slower and so on, but it's the same job. So if we look up the dump object variable example, so if we create an object and simply do text 1, 2, 3. So here, when we dump it, it's created memory, which is saved in the var object, and it will return the size of this memory. So here it's 41 bytes. You can also use this variable and save the data to disk, for example, or whatever you want to do with this. So if you kind of do this multiple times, I don't know, too much, you will see the size increases. And to load the data back, you simply do ObjLoad and your variable. Because the data is saved all in variables, so the script knows what size it is, where everything starts and so on. And oops. Okay. Oh. And it's restored. And there again. So you can very easily save it, very quickly save it to disk. Huge objects really, where you have millions of keys even, and it's still quite performant, so it doesn't take ages. And the same for loading. Then we have the exported functions, so most of them we covered already. We've gone through a few of them here. There is some low-level stuff I've told about the functions, where you can find the function which gives you the real pointer of a function. You can read the structure, you can find out what the parameters are, and all of different stuff, which is quite low level. You can also execute a line. When you're adding scripts or files, they return the pointer to a line which you can execute directly. And you can execute one line, execute until return, execute until block end, which is some internal stuff from AutoHotkey, which I just made available to script as well. Okay?
Yep.
There isn't much. This I see here. They are both for AutoHotkey exe and DLL, so they all exist, and these are only for AutoHotkey DLL, these functions. You can go through this page. This is all of the additional stuff I've added into AutoHotkey. There are zip functions, com object stuff, and different things which are quite useful. The memory library is something special. Which was done by Joachim Bauch, I think he's called. It's not the one. It's finding my stuff. It's linked on my page. Memory module it's called. This is to load the DLL from memory. So this is what AutoHotkeyH uses to load multiple DLLs into memory to do all the multi-threading stuff. It's quite old, I think. It was in the 90s where it was created first time, and it was developed more and more. And because I didn't want to save always the files on the disk and copy them, and it's really a mess when you do it like this, because you have to remember which file you already load, which is running, and so on and so on. This is a lot easier. So loading in from the same place multiple times, unloading, everything more or less clear. is a lot better.
Yeah.
And I think it's included here, memory module. There are the same functions here like you have with normal load library and get process, free library, find resource, and so on. In AutoHotkey case, it's saved in the resources, the file, and there's also resource load library, which loads the data from resources. And this is the same with AHK thread, which you, by the way, can find inside the source code. So if you go to source and resources, there is the folder RSLive, and here we have the AHK thread, which is AutoHotkey script, and here it's loading all the data from resources, AutoHotkey and AutoHotkey Mini, to be able to use it inside the script, and it's using the memory load library to import it. And there was also a function on, or still a function on the AutoHotkey forums, which was first written, so I first wrapped it into AutoHotkey code and used it there before I did it in AutoHotkeyH internally, which is not much maintained anymore because I didn't have interest to maintain it since I don't use it at all. And I've built it in here, and there were a few improvements in this which were only done in H, but not the other one. So it's also the struct stuff which we didn't have on the list, but probably good to cover.
Real quickly, sorry, I popped into the restroom real quick. Did you see Mason Jar's question?
No, sorry.
He had a question about using the memory library, and when he tries to use it under L to load _H DLL in a virtual in a VM, he receives this error, says build import table failed, and he's just trying to understand why it would fail in a VM but not on a host.
It's really tricky stuff here, which is doing there. And when I remember, there were a few changes to the memory load library, and there were a few problems. So if you go to the memory module, and there are still some problems. So some DLLs cannot be loaded and things like this. I did want to go here. No, this is not it. So probably there is also something which is covered there. It would be good to know if AutoHotkeyH has the same problem, because if not, it must be some code which is running not correct. And if it's a 32-bit version or 64-bit version, because 64-bit version has some problems as well. So here we have quite a few issues with them, because several things are not possible as well, not out, so on and so on. So it's probably worth checking here as well if there is a problem with the virtual environment. But the easiest is to check if AutoHotkeyH is running in VirtualBox. Because if this one has problems loading the DLL, then it's definitely something with the code, which is probably a bit different on the VirtualBox, and something is not running right. When I find time, I'll probably have a try to see if it's I can load it or not, and if it's Windows 7 related or Windows general. And but like I say, I don't want to maintain the memory library anymore.
Sure. I understand, trust me.
Yeah, because it's quite a lot of work.
Mason Jar said he'll check it in H and see what happens. So
yeah,
awesome.
Because I'm also using the struct, which was also improved a lot in AutoHotkeyH, and it's quite a complex stuff which you need really time to get into it.
Maybe you know, in three or 4 months, maybe we could have another one, because I know structs are something I would like to learn a bit more about, because I've seen references to them and I've never grasped entirely exactly what I'm doing. So, but I think that could be a topic on its own.
Yeah, I think structure can be a few topics even, because it's really a lot.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any other specific questions to? Well, one I'm just curious on. Have you done any benchmarks just demonstrating when you're, like, let's say you were doing something in SQLite, or, you know, something labor intensive, of showing the performance difference versus, you know, using the multi-threading type thing approach? Mm-hmm. Is it, how much time do you end up gaining? I'm trying to understand, is it worth how much of a benefit I'm going to get by switching? It's not going to be 4 times faster, is it? Because there's some overhead if you have 4 CPUs, right?
The overhead will be just a little bit, so really like nothing. Depends on what you do with your threads. So if they run completely on their own and don't need to communicate between each other, you will gain 4 times or 2 times, because here we have 2 processors which are simulated to 4, you know. So okay, it will be only 2 processors.
Yeah. You can't just split it more and more and suddenly see this crazy improvement, right?
Exactly, but it's definitely improving a lot. So when I do the SQLite stuff and run them parallel, it's using all the CPUs and running a lot faster. So this is not, so if I run one function or one script or 2 in parallel, the one on its own won't be faster than 2 in parallel. So they will be quite the same, because it's completely separate thread and runs on a different CPU. So you really gain completely.
Yeah. Okay.
Power.
Besides a lot of other benefits too, right? That you were talking about, is they're not dependent on each other. And
yeah. And I mean, I can show you quickly one stuff I've written quite long. This AutoHotkeyH, which is still not released finally, because I'm still waiting for V2 to be finalized to get into it. When I had time, I did quite a lot with it, but for probably 2-3 years, I didn't do much, because it's also working fine. So here, a lot of things are put into it. For example, the tooltip, which is displayed here, running completely separate thread, and I communicate with it in another thread. The main thread is watching my input and doing all the stuff using the input function. So here, when I type stuff, it's doing different things in different threads. So the tooltip displays, another thread does the work behind it, which is search for all the stuff which I need, and the main script is watching my input. So when I kind of put all this stuff, there are 2 other threads which are doing something, checking for the stuff. So here, for example, also when I go to, I can simply type C:, and I go to my folder, and for example, system32, and I search for something there, which takes very long. It's like this, I think. And so there isn't that much, but I can, hitting escape, I can still kill my thread without this problem that it hangs, because it's looking on the C drive for different stuff. So
all right.
If I do here, you see it's please wait. So the script is very busy looking for stuff, but I can still
It's responsive. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's not just multi-threads where you're going to interrupt it, but because they're literally running at the same time on different CPUs.
Correct. Yeah. So this one is still even running in background. Right. Okay. I think for today it's enough.
That was awesome.
Covered quite a few stuff.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other additional questions or anything specific? I think you wowed everybody. I mean, that was a lot of great stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Geek Dude said thank you for presenting. Absolutely.
You're welcome, yeah.
This
Sorry for not having all the installation stuff and a lot of help files, because in the beginning it was something I've just built because I needed it. I never wanted to kind of create this and maintain everything just for my own, but later on and on just learned also a lot of C++ and everything, and it wowed myself a lot of times. From beginning of AutoHotkey, it's just like a dream come true. So that's why I also invested a lot of time building all this stuff.
Which actually is something I want to bring up here, just because it'll probably surprise everyone as much as it did me. After you were presenting last time when Jack and I were talking to you, and I'm like, clearly, you know, you're a programmer and you do this for a living, and you're like, no, this is my hobby.
Complete hobby. When I first met AutoHotkey, I didn't do any code at all, and but it was like I found exactly what I was looking for, and I learned very quickly AutoHotkey was absolutely awesome, and it still is. So then I invested a lot of time to get more out of it.
It's just very inspiring to people like me who think, wow, there's still hope for me, right? That I have a chance that I can turn into something a bit better. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Mason Jar was also talking about Script Up project that you've been helpful, so thank you.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
You're welcome.
Cool.
Happy to see that people are using it, and there are a few users which use it very much. Some users from China. It's the Arctic, who is also often seen. I had contact with him a lot, so he's. It's really good when more people use it, as they find errors and problems which needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
And there were quite a few, of course. It's a lot of code, and V2 version. I really hope it will come alive. Because we can do another webinar on this one, because not a lot of new functionality is available there as well, and makes it a lot easier to use, of course, with all the error checking and so on.
I mean, so for me, a quick summary off this is on top of my head. I wasn't writing it down, but the ability that I can compile something and have it much more difficult for somebody to decode, that's awesome. That Windows API that you built into there and make it so much easier to leverage API call or DLL calls and API calls and things that look much more complicated. That's amazing. The multi-threading is to me, it's a bit steeper of a learning curve for what I got to do, but it's got a lot of great advantages to it, right? That you were just demonstrating that code of you can have something executing and still kill it or interrupt it and do other things, and or just the performance wise too. It's amazing.
I think the most users for AutoHotkey, what I understand, when they get to a point where they start needing multi-threading and some other stuff, they kind of transfer to C++ and don't use AutoHotkey anymore. For me, it was kind of never a question, because to have just the executable on a shared drive, on a network drive, wherever, and be able to do all what you need just from nothing, you know, no installation needed, nothing. Grab a computer, put a pen drive, go. This was something why I never switched to anything else, because I tried a few times to put Visual Studio on a disk or something to have it portable, but just lost time for this. And when you see how easy it's with AutoHotkey, you don't need really nothing. The same as SQLite, all you need is the DLL, that's it. And you're ready to go. Just love this, absolutely.
Yeah.
Also the whole environment, you know, you copy the AutoHotkey files to a new computer, put auto start, so copy a link to auto start, and that's it, ready to go. Setup done, 5 seconds.
Yeah.
I love this stuff.
Or have them on a thumb drive, right? And you can go anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, if no one has any other questions, I'd say let's. We're coming up at the end of the second hour anyway. That was great stuff. A reminder. So 2 reminders. One, next month, John's going to cover using SQLite 3, and I know he was actually excited to see you had that functionality built into AutoHotkeyH. So
Yeah.
I don't think he'll use it in the webinar, but he started incorporating his tool QAP. So he's going to talk about that. And then when I send out the email, I'll try to remember to post the link to the other 2 videos that we did. They both covered a lot of the same stuff, but especially the first one went a little deeper, I think, on the installing Visual Studios and getting things to work right. So if you're interested in creating your own password, then that one, I'd say watch both, right? It's quite involving, but at least you can pause and replay and look back at it, right? And that'll be a big benefit.
And we asked quite a lot more questions.
We did, because we knew a lot of the topics he was going to cover for the general webinar. Actually, today, for the most part, a ton of you guys are very advanced, so it was helpful. But we went more in depth on some of the stuff, and so I would say if you're interested in it, at least it's been documented to some degree, and put it on the background and just kind of listen to it until you get to a spot that you're interested in. But awesome, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you, Lou.
And thank you guys all for being here. We'll see you next month. And again, if you're not sure if you're registered or not, just make sure you're registered, because at some point I'm going to stop just inviting everybody that has been. And hey, you know what? Bring a friend next time.
yeah, bring a friend next time.
Yeah, that's right. Because it's so easy to find other people that you know that are going to be interested in this.
Probably not, but yeah, share the word anyway.
Actually, I noticed, and I don't remember who they were, but I noticed 2 or 3 people from the same company registered. So I think there was a little bit of that going on at least for the registration. Like I said, I didn't pay attention to the names, but we had 3 people from the same company register. So maybe it's getting a little bit out there of more people are starting to bring in some friends and share. But awesome. Thanks again. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Yes, and good night.
Yeah, good night. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for staying up late with us. All right.
You're welcome. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.